The grand hall of the Crystal Lake Hotel glimmered under the soft golden lights. It was high school reunion night, a time when old friends and forgotten rivals gathered, wrapped in nostalgia and memories they preferred to remember. Lila adjusted her red dress in the mirror of her hotel room, her sharp eyes catching her reflection. Years abroad had changed her. Her hair fell perfectly around her shoulders. Her laughter now carried a confidence it once lacked. She smiled at herself, but inside, a small voice reminded her, "Don't let them forget who you are." The hall was alive with chatter, laughter, and clinking glasses. Lila entered, gliding through familiar faces, some greeting her warmly, others with veiled curiosity. The air smelled of expensive perfume and old rivalries, but she felt a thrill she hadn't anticipated. This was her stage now. At the far end, a young man quietly moved among the guests, carrying trays of drinks. His dark hair was neatly combed, his suit impeccable, yet his presence seemed to go unnoticed by most. Lila caught sight of him and with a playful smirk whispered to her friend beside her, "Look at him, working as a waiter. Can you believe it?" Her friend giggled and Lila's words floated across the room. The young man's calm demeanor didn't falter, but his eyes, sharp and dark, briefly met hers. Something in that glance made her chest tighten for a second. She quickly looked away, brushing off the feeling. Minutes passed, and Lila, feeling daring, decided to make herself the center of attention. "Excuse me," she called loudly, just as the young man passed by with a tray of champagne. "Yes, you. Do you even know which table you're serving?" Her voice was teasing, a hint of mockery in it. The hall grew quiet for a moment, glances shifting toward the exchange. The waiter stopped. He looked at her, calm and composed, almost like he had expected her to speak. Then slowly he bowed his head slightly, murmuring, "Of course, madam. Right away." His voice was soft, but there was an authority behind it that made the words weighty. Lila laughed lightly, enjoying the shock she could see in the eyes of her classmates. But before she could add another teasing remark, someone leaned close to her and whispered, almost reverently, "That's Mafia boss." The words froze her. She blinked, staring at the man she had mocked seconds before. The crowd around them seemed to blur, the sound fading into a soft hum. Mafia boss? The name carried weight, danger, and power. Suddenly, the young man was no longer just a waiter. He was a shadowed force, a figure that commanded attention even when silent. Her cheeks warmed. Embarrassment pricked at her pride, and yet there was something in the way he stood, calm, unshaken, that drew her in. Her curiosity overpowered her nerves. As the night went on, Lila found herself stealing glances at him. Every time he passed by, his presence seemed to fill the room, even when he carried nothing but a tray. Some of her classmates whispered behind her back, exchanging theories, but Lila's mind was elsewhere. Who was this man? Why did he seem so untouchable, yet so real? During a quiet moment near the balcony, she stepped outside, seeking fresh air and a moment away from the buzzing hall. The city lights stretched below, twinkling like scattered stars. She leaned against the railing, taking in the night, when suddenly a soft voice broke the silence. "You shouldn't be here." Lila turned sharply. The young man stood a few steps behind her, his dark eyes unreadable. "Why not?" she asked, trying to sound confident, though her voice carried a hint of unease. "Because it's dangerous," he said, stepping closer, though he didn't invade her space. "This world, my world. It's not kind to those who don't belong." "I'm not afraid," she said quickly, surprising herself with her own boldness. "And I wasn't afraid to mock you either." He studied her for a long moment, a shadow of a smile crossing his face. "Bold," he said, almost to himself. Most people would have run or apologized or stayed silent. Lila's heart beat faster. There was something in his voice, a mixture of amusement and warning, that made her pulse quicken. She realized suddenly that she had stepped into a world she didn't fully understand. "Do you always follow people outside?" she asked, forcing lightness into her tone. "No," he replied calmly. "Only those who catch my attention." His gaze lingered on her in a way that made her shiver. He was not just observing. He was measuring, deciding, and somehow protecting. The night drew on, but the air between them remained charged. Lila returned inside, feeling a mix of excitement and dread. Every glance at him felt like a silent conversation, filled with tension and curiosity. Classmates whispered, glasses clinked, and the music played on, but Lila was aware of nothing but the shadowed figure moving gracefully among the guests. Hours later, as the reunion began to wind down, Lila found herself near the exit, lost in thought. The last thing she expected was to feel a presence behind her again. "You have a choice," he said quietly, almost a whisper against the night breeze. "You can step back into your old life, or you can step into something different, something dangerous." Lila felt her stomach tighten. "Different how?" He looked at her then, eyes dark and unreadable. "A life where power and danger walk hand in hand, where every step you take matters, and where leaving isn't always an option." Her mind raced. She had mocked him seconds ago, treating him as nothing more than a waiter, and now she felt like she had opened a door she wasn't sure she could close. "I don't understand," she admitted, her voice softer now. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," he said simply, "I can't let them touch you. Not tonight." The words were simple, yet carried an intensity that made her catch her breath. Not tonight. The implication was clear. He was a protector, a shadowed guardian, and the world he inhabited was filled with dangers she had never imagined. Lila turned to face him fully, trying to mask the tremor in her voice. "And if I say I want to understand?" A slow, almost imperceptible smile appeared on his lips. "Then you should be careful," he said, "because curiosity has a way of changing everything." The night ended with that whispered warning lingering in her mind. She left the hotel feeling both exhilarated and unsettled. The man she had mocked, the one who had moved silently among her classmates, was not just a mafia boss. He was a force of nature, commanding attention without effort, and somehow, inexplicably, he had chosen to notice her. As she walked down the quiet city streets, the lights shimmering on the wet pavement, Lila realized that her life had subtly shifted in a single evening. A new story had begun, one filled with power, danger, and an undeniable attraction she could not ignore. She didn't know what lay ahead, but for the first time in a long while, she felt alive, truly alive, in a way she hadn't felt in years. And somewhere, in the shadowed corners of the city, he watched her leave, a silent promise in his eyes. "If you step into my world, there is no turning back." The night had whispered its first secrets, and Lila, whether she knew it or not, was already a part of them. The next morning, the city felt different to Lila. The golden sunlight glinted off glass buildings, but the shadows between them seemed deeper, heavier, as if hiding secrets. She walked slowly, her mind replaying the events of last night. The whisper, the gaze, and the words that had lingered in her mind. "If you step into my world, there is no turning back." Her curiosity had not faded. If anything, it had grown. She didn't understand what had drawn her to him, why a man of such power seemed to notice her. And yet she couldn't shake the feeling that meeting him had changed something in her. By evening, she found herself back at the hotel. The reunion had left her restless, and she had a strange certainty that he would be there again. The grand hall was quieter this time, the echoes of last night's laughter replaced by murmurs of staff preparing for the next event. And there he was, moving through the room with his usual calm, dark eyes scanning the area, as if he could see everything and everyone at once. He noticed her immediately. No one else seemed to matter. He walked toward her slowly, every movement precise and deliberate, as though the air itself made way for him. "Back again," he said, his voice low, almost teasing. "I wanted to understand," Lila said, her heart beating faster. "I want to know why all of this matters." He studied her carefully. "Why does anyone step into danger?" he asked. "Curiosity, pride, or a desire to prove something?" "Maybe all of those," she admitted. "Or maybe I just want to know who you really are." For a moment, he said nothing. Then, surprisingly, he smiled, just a shadow of a smile, but enough to change the air between them. "Very few people ask that," he said. "And fewer still can handle the answer." Lila felt a shiver run through her. Something about his calm confidence, the weight behind his words, made her both nervous and drawn to him. She wanted to ask more, to know more, but she also sensed that each question she asked could pull her deeper into a world she did not yet understand. "Walk with me," he said suddenly. "There's something I want to show you." Without hesitation, she followed. He led her through the quiet streets of the city, past narrow alleys and dimly lit courtyards. Each step felt like moving through a story, a hidden layer of the city that only a few ever saw. Lila noticed how people subtly stepped aside as he passed, some bowing their heads, others whispering respectfully. The murmurs of Mafia boss followed him silently, but he seemed untouched by it all, except by her. They stopped at the edge of a small rooftop garden far above the city. The skyline stretched endlessly, lights twinkling like stars fallen to earth. She took a deep breath, marveling at the view. But the quiet presence beside her was what held her attention most. "This," he said, his voice softer now, "is where I think clearly, where the world below feels smaller." Lila nodded, unsure what to say. The night had already started to blur the line between fear and fascination, but now she felt something deeper stirring. Trust, though fragile, was forming. "You protect people," she said slowly. "Even people who don't belong in your world. Why?" He looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, Lila saw vulnerability behind the dark intensity. "Because some people remind me of what matters, of what I'm not willing to lose." She felt a flutter in her chest. His words were not meant for anyone else. She was beginning to understand that in his world of shadows and power, she was becoming important. The night continued, and he shared small pieces of his life, the burdens of his family's empire, the responsibilities that weighed heavily on him, and the dangers that lurked at every turn. Lila listened, absorbing everything. She realized that behind the title of Mafia boss was a man shaped by loyalty, honor, and a quiet, relentless determination. And yet, danger was never far away. A sudden shout from the street below drew their attention. Shadows moved too quickly, a warning that someone was watching, waiting. He stiffened, eyes scanning the darkness. Lila's heart pounded, but she noticed how calm he remained, how he seemed to handle the threat without panic. "Is it dangerous?" she asked, voice tight. "Always," he replied. "But sometimes danger shows you who you truly are." The night passed in tense quiet, a mixture of conversation and moments where words were unnecessary. By the time the city's lights began to dim, Lila realized she was no longer afraid of him. She was fascinated, drawn to his power, and curious about the life he lived. Days turned into weeks, and Lila found herself visiting the hotel often. She was learning to navigate his world carefully, observing, asking questions, and slowly understanding the rules of power and loyalty that governed it. She noticed small acts that revealed his true character. A gentle word to an injured employee, a protective gesture toward someone in danger, a promise kept without fanfare. Each moment pulled her closer, but also reminded her that this world was not for the faint-hearted. Then came the night that changed everything. A rival faction, jealous of his influence and determined to challenge him, orchestrated an attack. Lila was nearby when it began. Shadows moved too quickly, figures emerging from dark alleys, aiming to strike fear and chaos into the city. He appeared beside her in an instant, his presence commanding and terrifying. With calm precision, he moved to protect her, guiding her through the alleys and turning the danger away. Lila's heart pounded, but she felt a strange calm in his presence, a sense that he would not let anything happen to her. "You shouldn't have been here," he said, voice low, steady, but edged with tension. "It's too dangerous." "I wanted to understand," she said, holding onto his sleeve as they ran. "And I do. I understand now." He looked at her, eyes intense. Understanding doesn't always keep you safe. By the time the danger passed, the city had quieted again. The attackers had vanished, leaving only echoes of fear and whispers of power. Lila was shaken, but also exhilarated. She had seen the reality of his world, and she had survived it. They found themselves on a quiet street, lit only by the dim glow of a single lamp. She turned to face him, words catching in her throat. "Why do you care about me?" For a long moment he said nothing. Then finally he spoke, his voice soft but certain. "Because you are not like the others. You challenge me, make me think, make me feel, and I cannot ignore that." Lila's heart raced. She realized in that moment that she had grown to care for him too. Not just for the danger or the mystery, but for the man beneath the power, the man who had chosen to notice her. "Then what happens now?" she asked, voice trembling slightly. He stepped closer, a shadow of a smile on his lips. "Now, you decide if you want to step fully into my world. There is no turning back. It's a life of danger, loyalty, and possibility." Lila swallowed hard, feeling the weight of his words. She understood what he meant. This was not a game. This was a choice between the safety of the known and the thrill and risk of the unknown. I want to try," she said finally, her voice steady, though her hands trembled. He nodded, a rare, genuine smile breaking across his face. "Then welcome," he said, "to a world you will never forget." As they walked together through the city streets, the lights glimmering like stars, Lila felt a sense of transformation. She had entered a life of shadows and power, but also of trust and possibility. And though the road ahead was uncertain, she knew one thing for certain. Her heart had found a place in a world she had never imagined, and in a man who had chosen to protect it. The night held them close, the city whispering around them. Somewhere in the distance, danger still lingered, but for the first time, Lila felt ready. Ready to face it, ready to grow, ready to step fully into a story of power, love, and transformation, one that she could never turn away from. And in the quiet that followed, she realized something profound. Sometimes, the greatest adventures begin not with safety or certainty, but with a single moment of courage and the willingness to follow a man whose world was as dangerous as it was captivating.